Hello, I'm Sarah Eckberg, a certified floral designer from Nebraska. Thank you for your time today and welcome to my workspace. Today I will be discussing the importance of developing your flower processing routine and the many things to take into consideration. I will share strategies and products that I have found works best for my shop and my area. But keep in mind, every town and area has a different water supply and treatment that are in that town's water. So it's very important to find what works best for you. We will discuss the importance of processing the flowers, how flowers drink once cut, steps required in sanitizing, and the products and step-by-step instruction while asking very important questions along the way. You might be asking, why is processing flowers so important? Well, if flowers are not processed correctly, they won't have a very long base life, and the cost of replacing the product will increase if you can get replacement product in time. Here's an example. Let's say I have a wedding and it calls for gorgeous white garden roses that I special ordered weeks ago. The week of delivery, my shop got crazy busy and I thought I could save time and took shortcuts and did not process those flowers correctly. Well, guess where I am now? Disaster strikes and my beautiful special order white garden roses have lost their luster. They are no longer that premium product I sold to my customer. And now there's no time to replace the product. This can lead to loss of revenue and loss of future business. And it was so easily avoidable. Proper processing leads to more money saved and more profit, because you are setting yourself apart from your competition. You want to be known as the florist whose flowers last longer than 5 to 7 days. I've always placed my routine first and foremost, and I'm known as that florist in my area, and it feels fantastic, amazing, and even a little snotty. When you have customers repeatedly coming back to you, telling you that they can't believe how long their flowers lasted, it justifies all the time that you spent in doing so. It is so wonderful to hear. It never gets old to hear how pleased they are. It means so much to me as a florist, but it also shows my clientele that I am educated with my product and I am the professional that really cares about the product and their customer experience. They also love hearing from the people they sent the flowers to how long those flowers lasted. It makes them feel good as the sender, and they really got the value for their dollar. That feedback shows you that your customers know you appreciate their trust in spending their money with you. And often their recipients start bringing their orders to you as well. So not only are you saving money by not having to replace product in a hurry, you are also generating more income by the quality of your work, because your customers and new customers are going to tell all their friends how talented, knowledgeable, and meticulous you are. But before we begin talking about processing flowers, let's take a look at how a flower drinks. It's important to understand what the flower is experiencing in order to troubleshoot and develop your processing system. Once the flower has been cut from the plant and its own root system, it needs to find a new way to drink. I'm not going to go into the science because it is very complicated, but I am going to summarize. So, in nature, the root system of the plant provides pressure to push the water and nutrients up the stem. With the root system removed, how does the water get up the stem to the petals and the flower heads? The answer is in the leaves. The underside of leaves contain microscopic pores that open and close, named stomata. As water evaporates from that stomata on the underside of the leaf, it creates a concentration gradient that pulls water up the stem in a process called transpiration. The flower is now dependent on the stomata to pull the water up the stem, and this specifically is called transpiration by stomata. Now we understand why keeping leaves on the product is vital for the longevity of the flower. Now, as important as transpiration is, it can't occur if the flower stem is clogged. When clogging happens, we start to see something called bent neck and wilting. Bent neck is where the stem right under the flower head isn't strong enough to hold the weight of the flower head, and we mostly see this in roses. The leaves are healthy, but the flower can't recover from that. Wilting happens when water can't get up to the flower head because the stem is clogged with bacteria. The difference between bent neck and wilting is measures can be taken to revive a wilting flower, but not a flower with bent neck. But we don't want either of these to happen. Now, the next question we need to know the answer to is clogging. What is it? How can we prevent it? Clogging is just as it sounds. The stem gets clogged and impedes the water uptake. What causes clogging? Bacteria. Bacteria is made up of microorganisms called microbes. Microbes multiply at a very fast rate and are found in the boxes and packaging our flowers arrive in, on the trucks and the planes that deliver them to us, and in the flowers themselves. Bacteria is everywhere. Our biggest challenge is to minimize that bacteria, and that starts when we receive the flowers. The growers and wholesalers have gone to extreme measures, so don't you dare drop the ball. This leads us to the first process in my routine: sanitize. I sanitize everything. They joke if it holds still, I'll sanitize it. And to do this, I use DCD by Floralife. DCD is abbreviated for disinfectant, cleaner, and deodorizer. I only use Floralife because I found they work best for me and my local water supply. But there are great products out there. It's important for you to research them and experiment. Find out what works best with your area's water quality. Your local wholesale reps are a great place to start with this question because they're working and communicating with other florists in your area, and they might already have the answer. Now, DCD disinfects and reduces bacterial growth. I use it on my tools, cleaning my buckets, the racks and shelves in my display and walk-in coolers, and even the floors and walls of those coolers. A lot of florists use bleach to cut costs, but in the end it costs you more time, product, and money because you're probably paying employees by the hour. Bleach does get the job done, but it's very quickly evaporated from surfaces, which means it will need to be done more often, with more product and more time. Now, DCD is formulated to be longer lasting on surfaces, which means less time cleaning and less product. Okay, with sanitized tools, we're ready for the next step of unpackaging the flowers. Oh, I love this part. Remember, bacteria is in everything. So let's remove all the wrapping and rubber bands. This is an exception to roses. Roses can be left in their sleeve during the very first hydration process, but removed before placing in the cooler, which we'll talk about later. This helps prevent the bent neck that we spoke about earlier. Leaving the flowers in cellophane sleeves and rubber bands and cardboard isn't a good idea because they all contain what? You got it, bacteria. Keeping the flowers in the sleeves also keeps them bunched up. And that can produce mold and rot very quickly when allowed to spread out and breathe. This molding is less likely to occur. Okay, packaging off, let's take our sanitized tool and start cutting. When cutting the stems, there are a few ways of doing it, and you find what works best for you and your staff. Some florists use the bunch cutters, which is awesome because it's one swift motion and you're done. Others choose to cut a few at a time with handheld cutters or snips, and some florists will cut each stem individually with a sharp knife. I use a pair of handheld cutters for the majority of my product. I don't have a bunch cutter, but when processing wedding flowers or special order, I do cut each individually with a stem, or with a knife, excuse me. Any of these methods are fine, and they're what works best for you, the volume that you receive, and the time that you have. All of these tools work great as long as they're what? Sanitized! Okay, so laying our flowers on the table, one bunch at a time. Let's check each flower to make sure it is satisfactory and meets my expectations. Is this time consuming? Yes, it is. Is it tedious? Of course it is. But think of it as stopping to smell the flowers, which as florists, we often forget to do. If you find mold, do not put it in your cooler. Mold is airborne and a bucket hopper. Examine each stem and place those unsatisfactory stems to the side and speak to your wholesale person. With the volume they see, it is impossible for them to check and open every box. That's our job. Okay, bunch laid out, checked for damage and mold, packaging removed. Let's get to cutting. Okay, at the very bottom of the stem, I cut 1 to 2 inches to make a fresh cut. This fresh cut opens up the vessels and allows for uptake and removes any bacteria that's already caused clogging in here. There's a lot of discussion out there, and it's kind of old school about cutting your flowers underwater. If you're doing this, please stop, because now the water is contaminated. So everything that you place in the water will absorb that bacteria, and it will leave some of its own, causing the water to get dirtier and dirtier and dirtier with every cut. Also, a lot of florists think if you cut at an angle, it will help the flower drink more. Well, straight or at an angle, it doesn't change the uptake. What matters is a clean cut with a clean tool to open that vessel. That's the only thing required. So after our fresh cut, I remove any foliage that will be under my water line in the bucket to keep the bacteria away. Don't remove all the leaves. Remember, the transpiration by stomata process needs to occur in the cooler. Next, I use a product called Quick Dip. This is also by Floralife, and I use this for absolutely everything. I use it on all flower types, even Pizzaporum, Hypericum, branch-like stems, curly willow. I use it on everything. Now, some florists prefer not to do that, and they just use specific flowers. But 18 years of experience in my area isn't a choice for me. It's mandatory. Quick Dip is a ready-to-use hydrating solution that requires no mixing. It's formulated to kickstart the hydration process within the stems. This is their first drink since they have been cut, packaged, and shipped to you from all over the world. I find this step vital because being in Nebraska, smack dab in the middle of the United States, I'm not able to get my product as fast as I would like if I were living in another area. So I find this very important. And Quick Dip aids that first drink, and it sets the stems off on the right footing for the rest of my hydration process. I fill the container, 1 to 2 inches with Quick Dip. And having a wide open container is easier, especially if you are going to dip a bunch at a time, because then you can get the entire bunch in. Now, after cutting the stem, dip the stem into the container for 2 to 3 seconds. We have a song at our shop, I dip, you dip, we dip. I dip, you dip, we dip. So after that, we place in a sanitized bucket with flower food in the water. What kind of water? Hard water. If you have a water softener, stop using that water. Softened water is high in sodium, and it impedes the water uptake in your flowers. So back to the food. A lot of florists choose to skip this step, thinking they're saving money, and a fresh flower only needs fresh water. Oh, no, this is wrong. Flowers have to have flower food. Flower food products are very important to prolong the life of the flower. They contain sugars, acidifying agents, and stem unpluggers. The sugar is the food necessary for the flower to keep living. The acidifying agent enhances the uptake in water through the stem, and the stem unpluggers are just that. They help stop bacteria from growing and clogging the stem. Flower food can be purchased in powder or liquid concentrate. I invested in a dosing system several years ago, and I will not go back to powder. The dosing system is plumbed into my water line, and when I squeeze the pump, the perfect ratio of water to concentrate comes out every single time. This is not only a time saver, it eliminates waste as well. And when using the powder form, there's room for operator error of overmixing or undermixing. With the pump, there's no thinking required. I use it for filling my cooler buckets, the vases that I sell, and to even soak my foam. My water always has the perfect ratio and is always crystal clear. Once cut and placed in our hard water with flower food, the flowers are finally getting the first big drink that they so desperately needed. And now is the time for my secret weapon, finishing spray. This is Crowning Glory by Floralife. And the active ingredients in finishing spray are absorbed by the petals and leaves, working to fortify the cut flower from the inside out from browning and dehydrating. It's excellent for corsage and wedding work, and it really gives the flower the chance to go that extra mile that we really want for our customers. Now be sure to spray evenly and allow to dry before the next step of placing our flowers in the cooler. The reason why we place our flowers in the cooler is to slow down their life cycle, to last longer for our customers. And when a flower is at room temperature, it's working and drinking and going through transpiration to get that well-deserved drink. Placing them in a cooler temperature allows them to rest. But when rehydrating, when they first come in and we unpackage and unbox them, I give my flowers about 1.5 hours to 2 hours to get that rehydration process a chance to really get to the flower head and give it a good start. There are some flowers that do need to go in the cooler immediately for fear of opening, but the majority need that time to drink. If you check on them in that time frame, you're gonna see them start to perk up like we want them to. Okay, now freshly cut and cleaned, fully hydrated. Now it's time to place our flowers in our cooler. In our, what kind of cooler? Our sanitized cooler. Now all of this is done. It's been a few days. Our flowers are doing wonderful. They're flying out the door. The bacteria is under control as we can, and the walls and shore and floors sparkle. But guess what? We're not done. Now we do it all over again with the product that we have not sold. Setting up a routine and schedule that you can stick to every week is so helpful. I get the majority of my flowers on Monday and often fill in during the week depending on the events. On Mondays, I process new product just as we talked about. Then on Wednesday or Thursday, I remove the products from the cooler, fill sanitized buckets with flower foods, and then I recut the stems and replace in the bucket. Now there's no need to use a quick dip this time because they have been drinking. Immediately I place these back in the cooler. By doing this, I have reopened the stems to drink in clean water and removed any bacteria that had a chance to grow that was in the water or the stems. We can never get it all, but after switching the buckets, I sanitize those buckets I just used for the next time. That might be Friday or Saturday, whatever product is remaining. I do this again. I condense down into smaller buckets as I go. I have a rotation that I use in my cooler, which I place newest to oldest product. And this helps with quality control and getting product out the door in the order that it was received. Oh my goodness, we've covered a lot today. We know how the flowers drink. We understand the importance of sanitizing. We've gone through the step-by-step process of cutting our flowers with products to help them last long and get them drinking really well. Now remember, sanitize. Give your products the time they need to become the best product that you can provide your customer. Experiment with product lines that work best for you. And develop a routine, but stick to it. That's the key to that routine. I found that all of these steps are time consuming. And yes, they do cost money, but there's a way around that where it doesn't cost you a dime. You work the price of the products and the time spent into the price of your design. When you offer a product that is superior to your customers' expectations and your competition, cost isn't the issue anymore. It is no longer an issue. All of this hard work will pay off. But there's one more thing that I do in my shop. Oh, if I can find them. Every vase design, whether delivered or carry out, leaves with a packet of flower food. Every packet has directions on how to recut and mix with water. And this shows your customers that you're serious about your care of your products and you want them to be in good shape after they leave your care. A lot of people find this an extra expense, and it is, but once again, work it into your product. Work it into your design. Work the product into your design. Thanks for joining me today. I appreciate your time. And remember, the little things really do matter. Take time for them. They make a huge difference.